You are Black in the Green Room with me, your host, Keith Underwood. And this is your spot for real talk about entertainment with entertainers, creatives, and showbiz professionals. And now we're joined by acclaimed Broadway producer Brian A. Moreland, a visionary whose work has redefined the scope and soul of modern theater with productions like The Lifespan of a Fact, Blue, The Piano Lesson, Othello starring Denzel Washington, and the recent revival of The Wiz. Moreland continues to fuse cultural pride with universal storytelling, proving that Broadway can entertain, enlighten, and evolve all at once. Brian A. Moreland, welcome to the room.
Thank you so much for having me, Keith. I'm really excited to be in the room with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before you became one of Broadway's most respected producers, there had to be a spark. That first moment when entertainment grabbed hold of you. Do you remember what that was and how it shaped your path?
Oh, very much so. I was grabbed very early on in third grade, as a matter of fact. Uh, I was in a school play called Be What You Want to Be. And my teacher asked my mother if I could be in the play. My mother said yes. And then the teacher said, well, would you make the costume? And my mother said yes. And right after that, I found myself on stage playing Santa Claus. Now, I could not tell you what happened from the moment the lights went up to the moment the lights went down, but I knew I wanted to do it all over again. And that was my first dose of theater. And I knew that theater was it for me.
hmm you've become known for producing works that balance emotional power with cultural purpose. What first draws you to a story and tells you it deserves the Broadway spotlight?
Oh, well, it's the story. Obviously, stories of people that look like you and I resonate with me the most, and they're the most untold.
hmm
And usually, they are stories of determination, overcoming something, going through something, bringing something forward. I think about the piano lesson, and this story was all about generational wealth and wealth, not only financial wealth, but emotional wealth. And
hmm
that story stuck with me because it was about bringing your past forward and forging a new life together. So for me, it's about the story and then about commercial viability, right? So there's creativity that goes into the work, but there's also financial viability that has to happen for it to come to Broadway. And I find great creativity in our stories, great emotional depth. I love that you said it can enlighten and entertain. And I do feel
hmm
that. I do feel like theater has the power to create empathy and has the power to transport us for 2 hours, 2.5 hours to a different world that we didn't know or was curious about. And that's my favorite part about telling our stories.
Yeah. Brian, where are you from?
Orange County, California, originally.
I
Mhm.
I thought I heard that California in there. Yeah. How did you? I'm in LA, of course. And how did you make your way to Broadway?
I went to a boarding school there called Idlewild Arts Academy. And from that boarding school, I went to the University of Hartford in Connecticut. And I basically stayed. Once I
hmm
graduated, I did a little bit of back and forth between LA and New York City. But more or less, I stayed in New York right after college.
Yeah. Isn't it the best of both worlds to be able to do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Broadway production demands both artistry and also business acumen. How do you navigate that duality, keeping the creative spirit alive while managing the realities of commercial theater?
Well, my job does have a great deal to do with financial viability and making sure that people's investments come back to them, right?
hmm
Making sure the shows recoup and become profitable. But my overall main job, my core job, is really just to create a space that allows artists to thrive. That that's it. And for me, that space is created by gathering the resources and building a team. And it's not just me, although I am financially responsible at the end of the day, it's not just me that's responsible for the production. It's an entire team of people that come together in order to create that safe space for art to just exist. So for me, that balance is really derived from the need to support the artist.
hmm And why is that the need that needs to come first?
Because the artist, the storyteller, the actual person who is the vessel of which the story is going to be told. Um, the director has the vision, but the onstage talent execute that vision day in and
Mm-hmm.
day out. And those are the storytellers and the vessels that move the audience. And so if they feel safe and cared for, it allows them to just emotionally explore their characters, explore the world, really explore one another during the rehearsal process so that when they're in front of that audience, they can have an honest communication and an honest experience with the audience. They can communicate. And so for me, that's the key to the whole thing.
Yeah. What is a production day, a rehearsal day look like for Brian A. Moreland?
It's a little bit of everything. Um, a production day. So I'm usually up between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. Um, I will do my emails and phone calls for my company, and then I'll move into the show things that have to happen. So the rehearsals are usually at 10 or 10:30 in the morning. They go from 8 hours a day, so it's 10 to 6, an hour lunch break. I will drop into rehearsal, say hi, say hello. Um, if there's a problem that needs to be solved, I will be on hand to solve the problem. Sometimes it's just to listen. Sometimes it's could you just run down the street and get coffee? And
Mm.
sometimes I do that as well. And sometimes it's to be a sounding board for my director. They just want to verbalize what they're thinking, and my job is to literally repeat it back to them and assure them, give it a try, and it works out. And I'll finish that, go by the theater, look at the set being loaded into the theater, because remember, although Broadway is an international brand, it's comprised of 41 physical buildings. And
Hmm.
every time we go into a new building, everything has to be built inside the building itself. So I will go by our theater and check on the set and check on the crew and see how people are doing, and then return back to the rehearsal space, and then go back to my office and check on the rest of the projects. So it can be
Yes.
quite a long day, and a lot of different things that happen throughout the day.
Yes. Very interesting.
Mhm,
You've collaborated with icons like Felicia Rashad and Samuel L.
mhm,
Jackson. What have those experiences taught you about trust, excellence, and longevity in the industry?
mhm. Well, let's start with Felicia Rashad. Felicia taught me the ability to not wait to live your life.
Hmm.
So Felicia has this phrase, and she says, you should practice experiencing having exactly what you want. Now practice living that way. And I thought, wait, say that again? It says practice living the life that you already envision you have, you want, and you need, because otherwise you're waiting for something to happen before you actually begin your life. And so when you mention her, it just always makes me smile, because she um, instills confidence and faith and grace. Samuel L. Jackson instills talent and determination and hard work.
Hmm.
He is a hard worker. He works morning, noon, and night. I got that from him. Denzel taught me cultural uh, cultural responsibility and legacy.
Hmm.
And you have a responsibility to our people. You have a responsibility to the world. He always says that man gives the award, but God gives the reward.
Hmm.
And so each one of them are unique in their abilities, and each one of them share and teach. They teach people around them how to be better human beings and better people. Um, I've never been asked that question before, Keith, but that's what they've taught me and left me with. Mhm.
Yes. Hey, and Brian, I just loved when I first met you that the fact that you are this humble brother, and I say that with all intention, and that you are this, like, you are one of the premier producers on Broadway. What does that feel like? And how do you remain humble?
Well, being humble is really about putting one foot in front of the other. I don't really feel like I've ever, quote, arrived. It never gets easier. The projects don't get easier. Acquiring rights and doing the business behind the show of show business does not get easier after production. I'm still begging for rights from certain estates. I still need to go and uh, interact with the theater owners and ask them to believe in the project that I want to bring forward. I still need to go to investors and tell the investors why this show is so important and why you should invest in this show and possibly risk losing your money or possibly risk making money. So it never gets easier. So there's no space in that process for ego to thrive. You can't, because you have so many things you have to work through to get to the other side of sitting in the theater and watching the actual production.
Mm-hmm. And what are the differences? And you alluded to this a little bit earlier. What are the differences between working on a play that's more broad scale and then one that's more specific to us?
Usually the funding. Usually the funding. Yeah, we have people who are our icons for us, and
Mm-hmm.
people who we go, wow, we know them, we know who they are, what they are, where they are from, and for some of them, they've been living with us for quite some time. I think about Lynn Whitfield, and I think about Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen. I'm doing a show next with Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer, and there are people who go, oh, that's that's very interesting. And then I go to our people, they go, oh my gosh, I love them, blah, 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 blah. So they don't necessarily think or honor our our icons that we have, and we have many of them on the
Mm-hmm.
Broadway stage and in Hollywood and in the world. There are people who are in our pantheon of great actors who have just not broken, they've not crossed over into the white space of people experiencing their work. So when it's nuanced like that, it comes down to the funding of the project. It just makes me work a little harder and go and get more people that want to get on that journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about post-pandemic Broadway.
Mhm.
The landscape has shifted drastically and dramatically. How has that evolution influenced the stories that you're most passionate about telling?
Oh, it's really fascinating. My very first show that I led was a show called Thoughts of the Colored Man, written
Mm,
by Keenan Scott II. And the show started in about 2015. We started developing that show. And I knew then I wanted to take the show to Broadway. We had just finished our out of town tryout. We had gone to Syracuse stage and Baltimore Center stage in 2019, and kind of toward the end of 2019. And we were alerted that we were going to be able to bring the show to Broadway, secured a Broadway house. And then George Floyd was murdered.
mm,
And the pandemic hit, everything was on pause. And all of a sudden, people were leaning in. I think not only on Broadway, I would venture to say, in a broad opinion, I think the
mm,
world was leaning in to Black stories and Black people
mhm,
and looking to understand the world that they probably have never ever thought to pay attention to.
mhm,
And so it fostered a community of people and support for that show that just made it take off like wildfire. Post pandemic, in our system that we are all uh, exhibiting or living through, it's quite different. Things have balanced out, or in a way that has tipped the scales, where it makes it a radical act to think and say the word Black. It makes it a
mm,
radical act to um, say, I want to see that Black story. And so in this landscape, my next show, August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, is about a man who's been wrongfully enslaved coming back to search for his family.
mm,
And it's so radical now, post pandemic, post George Floyd, in this particular political climate, that people are hesitant to come to the story. but it is a story that needs to be told, which is why August Wilson wrote it. But it's just different now. It's different.
Mhm. So Brian, from Othello to The Wiz, your work it celebrates heritage while reimagining some classics. What guides your vision when reviving beloved stories for a new generation?
Actually, just that. When you do a revival, you're thinking of, there's something that moved you originally about the story, and that has stuck with you. So take The Wiz, for example. Um, when it was first done, it was so Afrocentric, and it was so unapologetically Black. And from the Afro puffs that Dorothy was wearing to the Vogue sequence that were happening within the choreography and the slang that was happening on stage. It was Black in every scene, in every costume, in every hairstyle, in
Hmm.
every movement. It put us on display. And when thinking about that show for 2024, it was thought, okay, that was a whiz of its time. That was a whiz for 1975, and it
Hmm.
incorporated 1975, and it had the look and the feel of 1975. But we need to figure out, how do we get the whiz up to date so that it becomes timeless? I mean, we know the story is timeless, but how do you now
Hmm.
make it, infuse it with our culture of today? And Amber Ruffin really took that assignment by the helm, and really wrote a story that was of now, that was of today, that had our slang of today, that had our swag of today. Um, so it's really about cultural responsibility for the story itself, and then connecting it to the generation of today. And the only way we can do that is to look back at the past and analyze it and study it. And then you can bring it forward for an audience today.
Hmm. Brian A. Moreland, where can everybody find you on social media? Where can they find out more about your work? I mean, it's impressive to highlight, living legends like yourself. So where can they find you?
Oh, thank you. I'm on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at the real Brian Moreland. Also, I'm on LinkedIn. You can also subscribe to my newsletter at bemorenowproductions.com and click and subscribe. And then you can also buy a ticket to come and see August Wilson's Joe Turner's Coming On, being directed by Debbie Allen. It's going to star Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer. We begin previews on March 30th at the Barrymore Theater on Broadway.
I love that. Brian A. Moreland, thank you so much for joining me on Black in the Green Room. It has been an informative and inspiring conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Be sure to follow me, Keith Underwood, at Mr. Keith L. Underwood on IG. You can also follow me on FB at Keith L. Underwood. And you know you gotta follow Black in the Green Room at Black in the Green Room across all platforms. Until next time, this has been Black in the Green Room.